Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
And we're now entering into a new era, a new warp speed, if you will.
Closing the vaccination gap. Why BC might be able to shorten the 4-month window between the first and second doses. Also,
there will be justice. Answers will come.
Family and friends of a slain Port Moody woman are confident justice will be served. And
every time it rains here, I hold my breath.
buckled roads and washouts.
See it? Sliding, sliding, sliding.
This all dropped.
A plea for help from stranded communities in BC's interior.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Encouraging news tonight on BC's COVID curve. The daily case count was lower on the weekend, averaging just above 700 cases.
And that's paired with more good news about our vaccine supply. Tanya Fletcher is here live with the latest on that. Tanya, we're seeing a surge in shipments. What will that mean for vaccinations?
Yes, more than 1 million doses are set to arrive in BC in the month of May alone. And that means the entire rollout is about to accelerate, even to the point of possibly shrinking the current 4-month window between the first and second doses. Now, right now, those who received their vaccines early on are getting notified about their second dose. But with a surge in shipments, the province will be able to speed up dose 2 for everyone. So now they're looking at how we can do that in the coming weeks and months. So what does it mean for the overall timeline? Well, it may be possible to hit every eligible British Columbian who wants one with the first dose significantly before the current target of Canada Day.
I think by the middle of June we should be well on our way. This is going to be a key month. We're in a whole different world now, and we're going to be providing vaccine rapidly to lots more people. Our clinics are ready and able to scale up.
Now, at this point, about 42% of eligible British Columbians have now had dose 1.
And Tanya, the ramped up rollout is also why officials are urgently asking everybody to register?
Yeah, we've been hearing that message more and more recently. And as of now, 2.1 million British Columbians have done this, logged on to the Get Vaccinated website to register, you see there. That may sound like a lot of people, but the health minister says it's not good enough.
We need to do better. We need people to register, and so that we're booking clinics and filling our clinics every week. Up to now, it hasn't been an issue because we've had a limited amount of vaccine, but in the coming weeks, we're going to need more and more people to register.
And you can hear what he's getting at there, concerned that the number of doses arriving could potentially outpace the number of people actually registered in the system to receive them. And I asked what would happen if there's not significant uptake in online registration.
That's where we do some of the outreach that we've been doing in different areas, whether it's through workplaces, through community groups, through religious groups, so faith-based groups, the outreach that the Premier started today with a number of community leaders.
Now, in the meantime, the main message stands. If you haven't yet registered online to get vaccinated, whether it's for your first or second dose, do so now. Mike, Anita?
Tanya Fletcher live tonight. Thanks, Tanya. 15 more British Columbians have died of COVID-19 since Friday as the province records another 2,100 cases. A total of 474 people are in hospital. That's the lowest number since April 20th, with 176 people in intensive care. An additional 90,000 people were vaccinated over the weekend. More than 45% of eligible British Columbians have now received a first dose. A man is in hospital with potentially life-threatening gunshot wounds, and investigators are on scene tonight after another daylight shooting in a very public place. Langley RCMP got a shots fired call at Willowbrook Mall at 3:30 this afternoon. When they were there, they found the victim and say this appears to be a targeted incident. Police also responded to an Aldergrove berry farm for a report of a vehicle fire. Both incidents and any potential connection between them are under investigation.
That shooting is the latest in a growing wave of violence. On the weekend, 3 separate shootings left 2 men dead and a woman in hospital.
Dan Burrett joins us live with more. Dan, we don't know if these shootings are linked, but Obviously pretty concerning.
Well, for loved ones, friends, the general public, let's start in Delta and what happened on Saturday there. That's where a BC corrections officer was gunned down near a shopping centre. Delta police say 29-year-old Bikram Deeparandama was killed. They say he wasn't known to them, though the behavior of the suspect suggests his death was targeted. Delta's police chief and the mayor will hold an update tomorrow and unveil a new way for people to submit videos. The Union for Corrections Officers in BC says the public and violent nature of Randhawa's death, quote, makes this loss immeasurably worse, especially for the members at the Fraser Regional Correctional Centre in Maple Ridge, where he worked. Over to Surrey now, where homicide investigators say a 19-year-old man died of a gunshot wound after he showed up at Surrey Memorial Hospital on Friday afternoon. A small memorial has grown for him. His name has not yet been released. Police say his death does not appear linked with the other recent shootings. Over in Burnaby, RCMP say a 43-year-old man there has been arrested after a young woman was shot in that city early Sunday morning. Mounties found the 25-year-old woman badly hurt near Boundary and Dubois streets. Her injuries, though, thankfully are not considered life-threatening. Police believe this was a targeted shooting, and there's no indication of any ongoing threat to the public. Still, from Friday to Monday, 4 shootings in 4 days, including the one near Willowbrook Mall today, at least 2 in public places, 2 of them deadly. Police have been very frustrated by that open display of violence. Anita, Mike?
Dan, live for us tonight. Thanks, Dan. A memorial is growing for a Port Moody woman whose remains have been found and whose killing is now being treated as a homicide. 48-year-old Trina Hunt had been missing for months.
And as Isabel Regem reports, people paying their respects today hope the victim's family will soon have answers.
Rain falls on a somber day in Port Moody. Loved ones and strangers lay flowers and handwritten notes on the front lawn of the Heritage Mountain home where Trina Hunt lived.
I can't imagine what she must have endured, and I hope she's finally at peace, and I'm glad they found her so that her family can at least have closure.
Over the weekend, a heartbreaking development to the missing case, now considered a homicide. Investigators revealed more than 3 months after she went missing, Hunt's remains were found, and that foul play is suspected.
We're just a few blocks away, and we know the people that live on this street, and it just felt pretty personal to have someone right from our neighborhood go missing. And when we heard the news the other day that they found her body, it really hit us. It just made it so final.
Hunt's family issued a written statement over the weekend asking for privacy and thanking the community for the overwhelming support. Back in January, police said she was reported missing by her husband on Monday when he returned home from work and she wasn't there. He told police she was last seen earlier that Monday morning. Many in the community and across BC have been following the case from the beginning. Starting in the new year, when police said Trina Hunt had been reported missing, organized search parties began within days, mostly centered on Port Moody trails. On March 29th, investigators say remains were found in Hope. And now, more than a month since that discovery, the public was told those remains were identified as those of the 48-year-old.
I wasn't ready to hear that news. It had been a while, so it wasn't really surprising, but it still caught me off guard.
Kelly Poole didn't know Hunt, but joined ground searches early on. While so far charges have not been laid, she believes that will come soon.
Answers will come. Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt that we're going to hear something fairly soon.
Both Port Moody Police and the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team have remained tight-lipped since providing the update. Isabel Regem, CBC News, Port Moody.
They are 2 Vancouver men on a mission to stop anti-Asian hate crimes.
And as Zara Premji is finding out, they don't plan to give up until they see real change.
We have to take action now.
Stephen No has come face to face with hate, hit with racial slurs and even garbage thrown at him.
Shocked and stunned and realized that it could happen to anybody, not just the elderly or those who don't know how to speak English.
And the ultimate trigger for Carlisle Chan wasn't just the attacks against himself.
People from my community get hurt, killed, or attacked just because.
But the brutal killings of Asian women in Atlanta in March.
I haven't ever felt like that before, so I took that pain and transformed it into something positive and to something powerful.
Both men say they're exhausted and feel ignored as their community grapples with an increase in hate crimes, from racial slurs to being spat on and thrown to the ground.
There's people every single day now that are getting attacked. Something needs to be done now.
An online survey by the Chinese Canadian National Council has found for more than 1,000 self-reported incidents of anti-Asian racism nationwide since the start of the pandemic, 44% happened in BC. Both men have separately found ways to combat the racism. Chan taking his notoriety through modeling and using his strong social media presence to fundraise. The money will support Asian community aid organizations and other groups of color. Asian is Human is a poem he wrote, now posted in restaurants, parkades, and apartment buildings with the simple purpose.
You don't have to be subordinate or submissive or quiet just because that's the way it was. You can stand in your power, you can be strong.
For No, his contribution is a little different. He tried to report the hate crime against himself on the Vancouver Police website, but the form was only available in simplified and traditional Chinese, not even English.
East Asians doesn't mean Chinese. It also means Vietnamese, Koreans, Japanese, those who are born here as well.
So he created his own website to report hate crimes for people who speak various languages.
The website's not meant to replace the VPD website at all, but it's meant to really stop the bleeding.
The VPD says it's reviewing the process, but if you do call in to report, there are officers speaking 50+ languages ready to help. For both men, this is just the beginning.
I'm super exhausted. Closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't ask, then it could never happen.
And they know the battle against Asian hate crime may take a lifetime, but it's a challenge they're willing to take on. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it was another day of bridge closures in Metro Vancouver as climate activist group Extinction Rebellion took this time to the Lionsgate Bridge.
Now we understand that this is a legal sidewalk. I'm walking on a sidewalk that's meant for pedestrians, and I'm being told I can't be here.
Vancouver police made 5 arrests today on top of the 13 people arrested over the weekend. Extinction Rebellion is calling for an end to fossil fuel exports through the Burrard Inlet and the Salish Sea. Lionsgate Bridge was closed for a brief time, and later police pushed protesters to the side of the road. This is day 3 out of 5 for their planned spring rebellion protests. And as construction ramps up on the Broadway Subway, we're getting a view at what the new stations might look like. These are just a few of the designs for the Broadway Subway project. 6 new stations will be added to the Millennium Line from BCC Clark Station to Broadway and onto Arbutus. TransLink is asking for input on the new station's features like entrances, the plazas, and much more. The online open house is on now, and it runs until May 12th.
Well, it's not pretty, but a creek in Abbotsford has become a foamy mess.
The cause? Well, a Tide powder detergent. Here's a look at how it happened and why there's concern. And the pandemic has once again snuffed out the annual summer fireworks event at Vancouver's English Bay. Organizers of the Honda Celebration of Light say it's simply not possible to hold the event in a safe manner. The event usually draws hundreds of thousands of people to the city's West End. It was also canceled last summer, but organizers hope to light up the skies again in July of 2022.
In the interior, landslides are threatening houses, washing out roads and prompting evacuation orders.
As Susanna De Silva reports, there are concerns that climate change could bring on this danger more regularly.
See it? Being all up in there is sliding. Down here is sliding.
Rick Sutherland has been watching the roads in his area crumble. This was last Monday morning on one of them. This was Monday afternoon. It was the backup for the main highway connecting northern BC to the rest of the province. A highway also currently down to one lane because of a landslide.
Our secondary road is sitting in the river now, you know, so now, and there we have another road over here that sounds like it's going to wash out. What then, you know? We're all going to get boats?
These washouts follow a year the province calls unprecedented, with 200 roads damaged in the vast Caribou region.
We are getting very close to seeing the entire infrastructure network of this region collapse. They are vital for agriculture, for mining, for forestry, for small business.
The largest forest fire in BC history happened here in 2017, further altering a landscape already feeling the effects of climate change, according to experts.
And so going from essentially dry conditions down to very wet conditions, so flood to fire kind of situations. And certainly it's a pattern, again, that we've seen in the last few years in northern British Columbia.
This has all shifted. This has all dropped.
Several homes in the city of Quesnel have been placed on evacuation alert. Last year, Katie Harrington's family was forced out of theirs.
He said, just leave everything. I just need you to get the kids in the car and leave the property.
A year later, and they are still out, denied house insurance and provincial disaster relief because landslides aren't covered. The province says it is pulling together experts to stabilize the current situation, saying it is spending tens of millions of dollars for repairs and replacements. But there is concern that what until now has been unprecedented could become the new normal. Susanna Da Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
And Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Our climate clearly contributing to things in the interior there, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Suzanne and I were talking earlier today about how the rainfall averages have really shifted in the interior. We heard from Stephen Deary from UNBC that these extremes are becoming the norm. And in fact, I was just looking at the radar right now. Take a look at what's rolling through Quesnel as we speak, severe thunderstorms. And this is what's coming. We're seeing our rainfall come in bigger waves rather than locked up in snow. So it's these kinds of events that are becoming more frequent. And this is how we're getting our precip in the interior by these big one-off events. You can see the thunderstorms literally rolling through Quesnel and that road as we speak right now. This is all part of a system that is tracking across the whole province. It's what's bringing the showers to BC, to Vancouver as we speak, but to all of BC, sort of seeing these lingering showers with this west to east flow. The main fronts are actually south of the border. We're getting the top end of this system. So bringing some cool air today, an 11 right now at YVR, a couple degrees below our seasonal or 30-year average anyway. Look at tomorrow's highs, though. Big rebound as we head into Tuesday, back up to 16s, 17s, and that's going to come with sunshine. That system bringing the showers and thunderstorms tracking over the Rockies overnight, and we've got high pressure on the menu for Tuesday. So clearing skies, warming temperatures. I'll tell you how long that high pressure sticks around, Mike and Anita. It's not all week, spoiler alert, but tomorrow's going to be a nice day.
Well, we'll take what we can get. All right, Joe, thanks very much. Talk to you again in a bit.
Well, it was 35 years ago Vancouver welcomed the world for Expo 86. The fair's theme focused on transportation, with pavilions from other countries showcasing their most innovative inventions.
Yeah, millions of people visited our city. And the day before it all kicked off, the national host at the time, Knowlton Nash, got a look inside.
With just a few hours left now before Expo does open, there's a real sense of excitement and anticipation here in Vancouver. But relatively few people really know what to expect at the fair. So I've been roaming about the site, seeing what you'll be able to see at a world exposition with a theme of World in Motion.
Motion is everywhere you look. The monorails get you around Expo quickly, but if you prefer a more leisurely trip, you can float around on the Sky Ride. When you're looking down, you'll see the biggest party we've had in nearly 20 years. Not since Montreal and Expo 67 have we had such a national celebration.
There's everything here, from the world's biggest flagpole to the world's biggest hockey stick and the world's biggest hockey puck. There aren't very many people around today, but come opening day, a couple of 100,000 people will be crowding in here, and this is right smack in the middle of everything. So you can imagine how many of them will be saying, "Meet you at the hockey stick." And not very far from here, there are some other really imaginative exhibitions. Here's one. They call it Highway 86, and you'll see every possible kind of way of getting around, from submarines to motorcycles to wheelchairs. It just goes on and on, up one hill and down another. Right next door is something called the International Traffic Jam. You'll see some of the pretty different ways people get from place to place around the world. But really, the national pavilions are the heart of any World's Fair. There are more than 50 countries here, all of them boasting about what they've done. And you can eat around the world, too, in fancy restaurants at fancy prices. But if you want something quick and very special and very Canadian, you can always stop off at the Northwest Territories Pavilion and get a muskox burger. Thank you. Welcome. That's good.
If you get tired of walking, you can take a ride. There aren't many of them, but for $3, the Scream Machine gives new meaning to the word thrill. If you can still walk after that, then keep going. You never know what you'll see next. Here's the world's biggest watch at the Swiss Pavilion. And you never know who you're going to meet next. There's the mascot of the fair, Expo Ernie.
Well, bless my little robotic heart. It's an old National crew from the National. How do you do? Glad to have you here.
Ernie, I'm well, thank you very much. Had a terrific time so far. Where do you think we should go next?
Oh, well, I think you should head over to the CP Roundhouse. It's a nicely restored historic building. You'll love it. It's right over here.
In front of the roundhouse is the old CPR 374, the engine that hauled the first transcontinental train across the Rockies and into Vancouver. When you've gone all around and you're back at the good old hockey stick, there's still more to see. Just follow the signs for a free trip to the Canadian Pavilion at the other expo site.
Then all you do is take the SkyTrain, push the button, off you go. Then just 4 minutes later, you're at the Canadian Pavilion.
Yeah, it certainly put Vancouver on the map, and it confirmed one thing for me looking back at this tape, that I work with an awful lot of very young people here.
What are you trying to say?
Wow. Well, I won't say it.
Well, it ended up being 22 million visitors. Producer Matthew tells us his wife's favorite memory, the Belgian waffles.
Oh, yeah.
So what was your favorite memory?
Well, I ended up meeting my future wife there.
Oh, that's right.
At the Unicorn Pub. Some people didn't manage to make it out of the Unicorn Pub for the entire fair.
Not you, of course.
I was a reporter for radio station CKNW. I was the Expo reporter. And speaking of young,
whoa!
Yeah, it was a great time. Lots of incredible memories, and you know, loved by pretty much everyone. There was some controversy around it with respect to homelessness and what have you that hasn't really gone away. But yeah, all in all, 35 years ago, quite a time.
Good photo. I can see why Jill picked you.
Oh, didn't have a choice, yeah.
All right, a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem.
And CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
While our numbers are slowly dropping here in BC, just to the east in Alberta, that province has become North America's hotspot, and that means more restrictions are on the way. It's coming up. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Well, it's no secret restaurants have been struggling throughout the pandemic, and in White Rock, tensions are growing over the battle for increased patio space.
But as Joel Ballard reports, some city council members want to decrease the amount of visitors to the popular destination.
Okay, ladies, chicken and waffle.
Uli's dining have hit the restaurant hard.
Everyone is really at their level, like max level of exhaustion. It's stressful. There's not a lot of answers.
Uli's patio only has space for 7 tables. That's common for most restaurants along the beach, making it difficult to pay the bills.
You can't survive on 3 to 10 tables. The numbers don't work.
That's why the Business Improvement Association pitched closing 1 lane along Marine to expand space for patios, but it was voted down by council.
It really wasn't feasible, because if you close 1 lane of traffic and the other one is bumper to bumper, we have no way to get an emergency vehicle in here, fire, police, ambulance. along with that and the cost, and all it would do is really add 2 or 3 more tables in front of the restaurants.
City staff estimated it would cost around $50,000, and there would be no guarantee it would be implemented by the time the order against indoor dining expired. As well, Chesney is looking at ways of calming visitor traffic from people who live outside of the popular destination.
We have triple the national average of senior citizens living in White Rock, and I've heard from them loud and clear. They don't come down to the waterfront anymore. You just feel there's too many people.
He introduced a motion to find solutions at a council meeting earlier this week. The BIA says it would only further hurt businesses.
We don't see how closing down the waterfront and taking the crowds down there and putting them in Crescent Beach and Mud Bay makes our community safer.
Silk understands that closing down a lane of the street might have been too difficult, but says there's more council could be doing.
We have a lot of guests who travel the globe, and White Rock reminds them of a place that they've been, except there were no cars.
Instead of reactively placing band-aids to help businesses, she wants the city to be proactive.
There needs to be a bigger picture, a longevity program for this beach. It could be absolutely amazing.
Big plans to help businesses keep the food and the drinks flowing for years to come. Joel Ballard, CBC News, White Rock.
Precious patio space for sure.
Lots of expanding patios. I'm seeing more and more every day.
Okay. Back in just a couple of seconds, more COVID-19 news from across the country. Right now, a live shot at just coming up on 6:26 on this Monday evening. While people in Alberta can expect strong public health measures to be announced tomorrow.
This comes as the province reported just over 2,000 new COVID-19 cases today. And as Carolyn Dunn tells us, no other province has seen infection numbers grow like Alberta has.
2 Albertas, one group defending a pastor who defied public health rules for months, another drawing stars in chalk, paying tribute to each of the more than 2,000 Albertans who have died from COVID-19.
And they die alone and they die intubated. And that's trauma.
Despite the highest active caseload in Canada, there's little consensus on what to do about it.
I think they're a bit overreaching. I really don't think there is a need for going as far as we're going with the lockdowns and all that.
I think it's better to have a real hard, painful May than a sad, really depressing July.
In hotspots, junior high and high schools are online, gyms are closed. Across the province, retail is capped and restaurants are limited to takeout or patio only.
It can be a challenge for sure, and in this entire past year and a bit, we've just had the mentality from the beginning of rolling with the punches, but they are sincere punches.
Chris Armstrong and her partner wish government would crack down.
The current enforcement is, to put it lightly, a bit of a joke.
A weekend rodeo with hundreds went ahead despite warnings from officials. That seemed to be too much for the Premier today.
Apparently they don't care or are somehow choosing to ignore the hundreds of their fellow Albertans in hospital and intensive care beds right now, battling this disease and in some cases fighting for their lives.
Furious public health experts pointed the finger back at Kenny.
There has been utter hypocrisy in actually role modeling these public health regulations.
Some of the government's own MLAs have publicly disagreed with COVID health measures. With pressure mounting and cases spiking, Jason Kenney says tomorrow, new restrictions are coming. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Calgary.
And the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been recommended now for Canadians over the age of 30.
But as Rafi Boudjikanian reports, they're being advised to weigh its risk and benefits.
We were immediately in touch
with the supplier.
Little more than a week ago, the federal government reassured Canadians vaccines it had procured from a Baltimore plant with quality control issues were fine.
The supplier assured us that these issues had not been affected.
But then, late last Friday, news the 300,000 Johnson & Johnson doses Canada received so far can't be used yet. Health Canada revealing it has to look into safety issues as they were manufactured in that same Baltimore plant. And while at this point no Johnson & Johnson doses are available to Canadians, the country's immunization committee has some advice on how to use them.
The Janssen vaccine may be offered to individuals 30 years of age and older without contraindications.
There's an if though. Get it if you don't want to wait for wider availability of the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, weighing the risk of how much COVID there is where you live versus the 1 in 100,000 chance of developing a blood clot.
So for instance, if someone's working from home, not really going out in a province or territory where there's not much disease, then they're in a very different situation than somebody that works in, let's say, a manufacturing plant, has difficulty wearing PPE, and in a province that has a very high burden of disease.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
What does Health Canada advise? This is a lot different from what we've been hearing. Taking the first vaccine offered, or wait if you can for an mRNA vaccine?
The Honourable Minister.
All of it prompting a heated exchange in the House of Commons.
Health Canada is responsible for approving vaccines for use in Canada and have given specific use requirements.
But all largely rhetorical for now. It isn't yet clear how long it'll take Health Canada to say that Janssen doses already in the country may be used, while 8 million more Pfizer shots alone are expected to be shipped this month. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The World Health Organization is scrambling to fill the shortfall in its global vaccine sharing program. It comes as India stops exports of its AstraZeneca doses.
In the next few months, we do not expect Serum Institute to be able to supply the kind of volumes that were originally predicted. So we need to meet that gap. And so it would be really helpful to get AZ doses from other countries.
Sweden has committed to donating 1 million doses of AstraZeneca to help deal with the immediate shortage. U.S.-based Moderna says it will provide up to 500 million doses for the COVAX program, but the shipments are not expected to start until later this year.
And the COVID-19 situation in India remains dire tonight.
As Neha Punia tells us, the country has seen another 3,400 deaths and just over 350,000 new cases of COVID-19.
Even as the deadly grip of the pandemic tightens and spreads in India, another problem is pushing up the death toll further: an acute shortage of medical oxygen. Today, 24 patients with COVID-19 died in the southern Indian state of Karnataka. The government-run hospital they were in had run out of oxygen, leaving families distraught, demanding action against hospital staff. This grief no longer an isolated lament in India. In Delhi, a dozen patients died this weekend because of oxygen shortages. And in city after city, as oxygen supplies run short, hospitals are turning patients away. Crematoriums have not stopped running for days. Pyres burn round the clock. Meanwhile, more ventilators and oxygen containers have arrived from the West, help coming from Germany, Italy, the UK and the United States. Doctors on the front line say supplies are hard to find and say these shortages have crippled India's fight against COVID-19. And now a shortfall of vaccines threatens to derail the nation's fragile path towards recovery. India has opened up its vaccination drive to all 600 million adults starting this month, but insufficient supplies of even vaccines mean only a dozen of nearly 30 regions have been able to expand their rollout. With the world's biggest producer of vaccines unable to meet internal demand, India is looking to fast-track approval to import more vaccine doses. A hope that ramping up inoculation will help bring down the steep second wave that's yet to show signs of slowing down. Neha Punia for CBC News, Delhi.
In some BC communities, everyone eligible has been vaccinated. We're going to take you to Denman Island, just ahead.
Tonight, the royal couple is back in Vancouver, and there's another evening of entertainment for them. Charles and Diana will be at the Expo 86 Theatre to hear performances by Bryan Adams, Loverboy, and Kenny Rogers. It was day 2 at the fair. The sun was out, spirits were up, and people were taking a closer look at what's inside all the pavilions. Catherine Wright did some browsing around too and spent a fascinating time at the exhibit from Japan.
At the Japanese pavilion, they try to celebrate one of the themes of Expo, transportation, without getting so technical that they bore the children. And they do it with a gigantic model of Japanese urban transit, all done to scale, all with incredible detail. 17.5 billion people are moved about every year in Tokyo alone, and the model shows how that's done. There are 5,000 cars and trucks, 3,500 buildings, 200 trains, 150 planes, 300 ships, and 20,000 little people. A man's coat flaps in the wind. The bullet train slows down for passengers. Cars stop at a red light. On the highway, a farmer takes his pigs to market.
Here we're showing mostly what's shown in modern Japan right now, more than what's in the past or what's in the future. But what I mean by being complex and yet simple is that they want to make it simple, but they want to show you how complex the system is.
The future in Japanese transit is outside the pavilion with the high-speed surface transport train. They claim it's speedy, safe, smooth, silent, and pollution-free. It operates by magnetic levitation, no wheels, as if it's floating on a cushion of air. Here it only travels 40 kilometers per hour. In Japan, it travels 300 kilometers per hour. It's the fastest urban transit train in the world.
That was great.
Not much feeling of motion, really. There's no noise or vibration of any kind.
Did you like
I really enjoyed it, yeah. Beautiful.
But it's really smooth. And if you were going at top speed, you wouldn't have to be holding on.
Just smooth. It just felt like you was floating on air.
The sun shone for the first time in weeks in Vancouver today, and with the sun, Expo 86 came alive. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people got to see the fair for the first time. Being Saturday, it was a big day for the children. And for children, what counts at a fair is the fun. There was no shortage of that. Catherine Wright, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
There's been another brazen daylight shooting in Metro Vancouver, this time at Willowbrook Mall in Langley. A man is in hospital with potentially life-threatening injuries. This is the 4th shooting in just 3 days.
As we open up immunization to all adults and we get everybody with their first dose, we'll be able to speed up dose 2 as well.
With COVID vaccine shipments ramping up, Dr. Bonnie Henry says every eligible British Columbian may actually get their first shot well before July 1st, which was the initial target. She says the province should be able to shrink the 4-month window between the first and second dose as well.
And almost everyone living in a remote BC community now shares something in common with their fellow residents.
As Greg Rasmussen reports, Denman Island is the latest community where every adult was offered access to a COVID vaccination.
Handing over a precious cargo.
Yeah, more of a risk to transfer it.
Yeah. 100%, I'm fine with that.
Hundreds of doses of vaccine. Loaded onto a ferry, destination Denman Island, a community eager for relief. After a quick setup,
I don't know what's in there.
doses are drawn, ready for those lined up.
Oh, have a seat. Okay.
One of the first in line is Brian Holt.
Right in the tattoo.
Yeah, right in the tattoo.
A friend of his died recently from COVID-19.
That's when it hit home that this is real. Up to that point, I knew it was there, but I didn't take it seriously. Serious enough.
The goal is to vaccinate every adult they can in the community over 3 days, quickly creating herd immunity for the island.
Is your first dose?
Wasilia Weiss is hoping to better protect her family, including an elderly relative in their shared workspace.
I want protection. I work in a studio with my father-in-law, who's 82, and we've had to make some serious changes to try to work together.
Head on over and see Ariel right there.
This retired nurse who lives on the island says there are a few opponents to the vaccine, but most are keen to get the shot.
The proportion of anti-vaxxers is very small compared to the amount of people that are following the guidelines.
And then we made the cuttings.
This couple runs a winery and tasting room on the island. The vaccination blitz gives them hope, but they're unsure about the impact on their business in the months ahead.
I think it'll take a lot longer than we think. And it's not a one-shot deal. I think it will be with us for quite a few years to come.
I think it'll make it improve things. I think it'll make it better. People will be less anxious.
Any vaccine you can get that.
One of the nurses who lives on the island says widespread vaccination is giving people hope.
It feels really, really great, knowing that my neighbors who are always there to support me, that I can be part of helping protect them.
What's happened on this island is what the rest of Canada is still waiting for. Almost every adult has now been vaccinated, and they're hoping it turns the tide. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, near Denman Island, BC.
It's been 5 years since a wildfire tore through the community of Fort McMurray. Now that community has rebuilt. What lessons have they learned and what risks are still in place? It's coming up.
And just approaching 6:42 on this Monday evening, a live look downtown Vancouver tonight. A dull and soggy start to the work week, but brighter skies are on the horizon. Johanna has your forecast next.
As night falls, the time has come for another ancient spring ritual. Underground, one of the wood frog's quieter, distant cousins is stirring. A spotted salamander. But unlike wood frogs, salamanders can't survive freezing, so they spend the winter hidden deep underground to avoid the worst of the cold. Every year, this female returns to the same pond to breed. It's the pond where she hatched, which could have been 20 years ago. Since her visit last spring, her search for food may have taken her a kilometer or more away. It's a long journey back when all she has are 2-centimeter-long legs. Finally, home. Swollen by the spring melt, this ephemeral pond has no predators, and that makes it the perfect place to lay her eggs. First, she must find a mate. These males emerged from their burrows before the females. And they've used the time to decorate the pond with tiny white packages of sperm. Now, their one aim in life is to get a female to choose theirs. The males increase their odds by laying sperm on top of their competitors. It's an unusual game of one-upmanship. The tiny towers of sperm get stacked higher and higher as each male tries to be the one on top. Finally, the female chooses. Whichever lucky male had his sperm on top will be the one who fathers the next generation. Now she can lay her eggs, and next year, her offspring that survive will be drawn back to the same pond to continue this ancient cycle.
When your backyard is burning, is anywhere safe? I'm Adrienne Lamb, the host of a new podcast, World on Fire. Join us on the front lines of wildfires burning around the world. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
It's been 5 years since one of the most devastating wildfires in Canada swept Fort McMurray.
Since then, the area has invested heavily in wildfire prevention and emergency protocols.
That is Jamie Malbluff reports one issue remains. There is only one highway in and out of Fort McMurray.
The forest on the other side was burnt.
Duchess Sabovich still misses the forest that was once behind her home. The marsh that's left, a bitter reminder of her terrifying escape 5 years ago. Sabovich shot this video while fleeing Fort McMurray on the back of a motorcycle with her husband. They were stuck in a fiery gridlock for 9 hours.
We both still have a little bit of PTSD issues.
The Horse River wildfire forced over 80,000 people to evacuate the community. More than 2,400 structures burned. 86% have been rebuilt, but many empty lots remain.
We weren't even able to defend ourselves.
Brian Fayant and other Indigenous leaders say communication was a problem.
We wanted to be informed so that we could help our members and our community, our elders, escape, run from these fires.
An independent report said if nothing changes, the province can expect something similar or worse to happen again.
That was a very powerful fire and very difficult to work, a very difficult situation for everyone. But there were some important things that came out.
There has been progress made on all 10 recommendations from the report, including fire forecasting starting earlier in the season.
And that gives us more time to get people trained, more time to get people ready and positioned.
And when a big fire does break out, the municipality, province, and Indigenous leaders are in the same room. But one glaring problem hasn't been resolved. There's still only one road in and out of Fort McMurray. A proposed second highway is being studied.
That is something that I would like to see done. It's something that we advocated for strongly.
But it would cost about $1.5 billion.
When I look at provincial and federal budgets, that there isn't a lot of money to spend on these things, but we just have to continue the advocacy.
In the meantime, Fire Chief Jody Butts says evacuation plans have improved.
We are much better than we were 5 years ago, and I can say that with 100% confidence.
Sabovich, like many people here, would feel safer with a second road as she still struggles with what happened.
My faith gets me through most things. I'm blessed with health, and our house keeps standing. I don't know.
And she's already planted new trees here, hoping there will be a forest for the next generation. Jamie Malbuff, CBC News, Fort McMurray.
And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Joe, what are we looking at for this year, really?
Yeah, never too early these days to talk about fire season, but yeah, a chilling reminder of what happened not that long ago across the border. And I was on the ground with the News Network team for that one. And of course, that followed back-to-back record wildfire seasons here in British Columbia. So all eyes on the fire forecast for this season ahead. I want to show you some pictures from across the island because not that long ago, just a few days ago, drought concerns for the island, adding up some of the totals for April, and places like Victoria, half as much precip as the lower mainland. Vancouver, we had about 40 millimeters for April, not even 20 millimeters. So it was a dry month. Now you can see, though, fire danger is back down to low for now, and that is because of the system that swept through overnight last night. It's amazing what the weather can do to increase and decrease those risks. We did get a chance, though, to talk to a fire official earlier today about the season ahead. Take a listen.
Our long-range forecasts for the summer are that we're going to go through an average fire season. We're not seeing any indications that we're going to have something that's above average. So for us, what average means is that we do have a little bit of a dry period in the very early spring and April. Then we go into a period of time, May and June, where it's seasonal.
So we're really hoping that forecast holds. Obviously, an average still means wildfire season for British Columbia, but having a little bit of a cool down to kick off spring is really helping those long-range forecasts. But I'll be watching that one for sure, Mike and Anita.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we're into May, but let's just talk about April, which according to my calculations, which are usually wrong, it was pretty sunny, wasn't it?
Mike, you're actually pretty good. Yeah, you're my weather protege, I would say.
I may have heard you say that earlier.
You nailed this.
He's very excited about that.
Yeah, we should get that on tape. Perhaps we did. The record has been won for Vancouver and Victoria. This was officially the sunniest April. August began for both cities, coming in at over 200 hours of sunshine. Let me take you through the temperatures across the country right now, because it really was just the west side of the country hanging on to that 2-week stretch, which really helped in our sunshine through the middle of April there. High pressure is going to bring the sunshine back for tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, it's fast moving, though. It's going to hop right over the Rockies as we head into Wednesday. So increasing cloud, and look what is hot on the heels. Low pressure. This is actually a pretty big storm, a little bit far out for me to nail down timing for Thursday and Friday. But heads up, it could be a windy and wet Thursday and Friday for much of British Columbia. So enjoy the sunshine for tomorrow. We've got high teen temperatures for almost everyone. Prince Rupert and Cranbrook, you're the only ones with a rain icon, but I think you'll see the sun by the end of the day. Pretty seasonal temperatures, starting to warm up as we hit Wednesday, and that goes for everyone here in Vancouver included. Look at that forecast. Possible to see parts hitting the 20-degree mark. I've got YVR to 17, but again, 20 is not out of the question for Wednesday. I'll keep my eye on that storm for Thursday, Friday. At this point, we clear back out and let the clock be reset on new records for May.
Let it happen. Yes, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. Right. Joe, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Well, last year, the Vancouver Park Board gave a homemade bike park the green light. Why it's a no-go this year, coming up.
Normally, Derek Pottle, a resident in Rigolette, wouldn't put his snowmobile away for the winter until this time next month. But spring has sprung so quickly, the ice is vanishing in a year where very little formed anyways.
I drove a snowmobile back to Rigolette from Goose Bay the end of January, and you're zigzagging around holes in the sea ice, and believe me, that's not comfortable. That's not comfortable. And that's not safe.
The effects of climate change on the North Coast have been alarming this winter, which is part of a larger trend. Experts say temperatures in the winter play an important role in what happens in the spring and summer, which means climate change drastically impacts Inuits' way of life year-round.
The whole cycle is impacted. It just like It goes from one to the other, to the other, to the other. There's nothing human or animal is immune from what's happening.
Pottle says berries are at risk with warmer temperatures, heavier rain, and wind, all in which are being seen more frequently. He's concerned about wildlife both on the land and in the sea. He's noticed ponds drying up in the summer, a crucial habitat for some species. And maybe one of the more annoying changes, the bugs.
You virtually can't breathe for them, and it's horrible.
Perhaps one of the top places to see evidence of climate change in the summer is in the Torngat Mountains, where shrubs now sweep across the barrens. The amount of shrub cover has about tripled in size inside the park since the late 1990s.
Well, it changes just about everything. You can imagine going from a tundra ecosystem to a shrub thicket is a really profound change. You've gone from essentially a two-dimensional landscape where, the vegetation is flat on the ground or very low to the ground to a three-dimensional one where you sort of would have to push through the vegetation. So that'll affect how wildlife and people can travel across the land. It'll create habitat for species that weren't there before.
The enhanced vegetation also gives bears a better place to hide, raising anxiety among people who are traveling. And animal prints are becoming harder to track under more greenery. Over the years, the Torngat Mountain glaciers have begun to shrink, some of them disappearing. Glaciers rely on cold temperatures all year round, but the summers are getting warmer. All factors considered, the landscape is transforming right before people's eyes.
We have some major concerns as to what the outcome is and how long will we be able to hold on to this lifestyle that we're living,
Meg Roberts, CBC News.
Hi, I'm Amy Bao, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is a proud returning sponsor of the 20th annual Doxa Documentary Film Festival. Get your tickets and watch amazing films from the comfort of your own home, May 6th to 16th. Learn more at doxafestival.ca. And the CBC News Vancouver team wants to see your beautiful photos of beautiful British Columbia. Email your photos to bcphotos@cbc.ca for your chance to be featured.
Well, dozens of East Vancouver kids have built a makeshift trail riding course inside a local park. It started last the green light.
But as John Hernandez reports, this year it looks like the park board has changed gears.
It's not your typical biker gang, but the kids who live near East Van's Grace Park pedal together.
This park's great. I absolutely love coming here on a sunny day. This park is my life.
Dozens take to this makeshift course every day, a refuge for riders like 12-year-old Liam Parker Vattel.
My friends are here, and we can have all sorts of fun. There's a corner store just up the hill. We go get snacks, and we come here and do all sorts of jumps.
The kids started to build it up last summer. At first, there was pushback from city inspectors who deemed it unsafe. But after an outcry from parents and kids, the park board let them keep it. That's why parents like Michelle Woods were surprised to see that workers recently decided to flatten it.
This year they've started it again, but for some reason, the operations department has been given a different message and they keep flattening it.
So the kids just built it up again, starting a game of cat and mouse that's lasted all week and even prompted a visit from the VPD.
They handled it very well, were very kind to the kids, especially when they found out that they had nowhere else to go.
Today, more jumps and more kids who say this spot has brought the community together.
They're taking it down because they don't want people following and suing them. But on the other hand, so many people were coming because of it.
Because of the virus, you can't get out and go a mountain to ride, so it's convenient to have it right here.
And a year ago, I didn't even know how to properly do the jumps, but now that I've learned how to, it's a new passion for me.
And they don't plan on backing down.
We really love doing the jumps, and even if you do fill them in, we're gonna build them back.
back and you hissed.
CBC News has reached out to the park board for comment. As for the parents, they're just happy to let the kids be kids. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well-spoken kids. It sounds like this trail has been great for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully they can stick it out, so to speak. I don't want to pass any judgment here, but anyway, hopefully
We'll see what happens.
Hopefully they can make it work.
All right, that is it for our show tonight. You can always watch our newscasts online anytime, cbc.ca/BC.
Next local news right here, 11 o'clock. Dan Burrett after the National. Have a great Monday night.